get by. It resides between my eyes. Walk through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Desmond Clark, and his company is Bear Down Logistics. It's beardown-logistics.com. And Des, I always like to mention other episodes people should check out of the podcast before we get started. And since this theme is kind of athlete entrepreneurs, okay? Some of the other cool ones I had Chris Gronkowski, brother of Rob Gronkowski, founder of Ice Shaker. He was on. We had Benny Fowler. He talked about hauling in the final pass of Hall of Famer Peyton Manning and his business. We had Brent Novoselsky, Jamar Williams, and Wendell Davis, who is also a Chicago Bear. He's co-founder of a healthcare products company. Gabe Karimi is co-founder of Strive, which is an air-dried beef snacks product. Chris Gandy, founder of Midwest Legacy Group, played for the Fighting Illini and the Bulls and the Spurs, and that and many more on InspiredInsider.com. And this episode is brought to you by Rise 25. At Rise 25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships and partnerships. And how do we do that? We actually help you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run your podcast. We do the strategy, the accountability, and the full production execution. As we call ourselves the magic elves that work in the background to make sure it's easy for the host and the business. They can just focus on what they should be focusing on, which is relationships in their business. So, for me, we know each other a little bit. As the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. And I found no better way to do that than to profile the people and the companies I most admire on this planet and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com. And I'm going to introduce Desmond Clark. He is, as I mentioned, founder of Bear Down Logistics. He's an all-time great Chicago Bear, and he actually had a stellar 12-year NFL career. I'm going to actually, I have something pulled up really quickly. That's because, I do a lot of research ahead of time. And, right now, if you're watching the video piece, you can see Bear Down Logistics. But as I read this, I found this awesome. I don't know if you've seen this. There's a Desmond Clark tribute. Have you seen this?
Yes.
This is awesome. So anyways, I wanted to play it on silent as I read this because, I watched the whole thing, but there's a lot of really cool highlights here of him catching passes, scoring touchdowns. But so I thought it'd be appropriate. But today he's a global motivational speaker, leadership trainer, 2 times published author, founder and CEO of Bear Down Logistics, as I mentioned. And what they do is they're a third-party brokerage that offers dispatching and warehousing solutions. Some of his this wouldn't be proper without mentioning some of your career highlights, in my opinion. At Wake Forest, he was 2-time second team all ACC selection, 2-time team MVP, finished his career as ACC all-time leading receiver, selected as alternate to the Pro Bowl in 2005, and he helped lead the Bears in 2006 to an NFC championship and to the Super Bowl 41 against the Colts. And he was the first Bears tight end since Mike Ditka, which was in 1962-64, to have 3 consecutive 40 reception seasons. One of my friends, Des, is funny, Aaron Moorhead, who I grew up with, played against you in that Super Bowl. And Emery and his son are the 2, and I don't know if you know Emery, but they were the first father-son duo to have both played and won a Super Bowl. I think that's a true stat. So that's kind of crazy. So anyways, thanks for joining me.
Yes, sir. I just hate that his son had to win it against us. But I do know Emery Moorhead. So Emery Moorhead, he was the number 2 tight end in Bears history for catches and yards and touchdowns. And I eclipsed him over my time. And he sold me my first house up in Chicago. So I know Emery really well.
Yeah. NFL player, entrepreneur, I knew he did a lot of stuff in real estate. I want to get into what you do at Bear Down, but I want to also hear from your NFL career a little bit. It just takes grit and toughness to, even get to the NFL and also play in the NFL and even play 12 seasons in the NFL. I mean, I get injured in walking around the block, right? So that's amazing. Who were some of the toughest defenders that you had to play against?
Willie McGinnis is one of the names that comes up because he played on that tough New England Patriots teams, and he had those long arms, and he was so strong that it was hard to block him. Williams, what was Williams first? DeMario Williams. He was a number 1 pick from the Houston Texans, and I think back then everybody was disappointed that they picked him over Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush went number 2. But that dude was just like Willie McGinnis, like real strong, long arms. And I remember playing against him, trying to block him. And it was like the Three Stooges or something when you're holding somebody's head, and you're just trying to get to him like this. That's how I felt that whole game. Like I couldn't get to him. His arms were so long. So those are 2 of the toughest guys that I had to block. Played against great guys like Ray Lewis in the league. And he was also my teammate in high school. So
Ray Lewis was.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. So yeah, I played against some pretty good people.
What was Ray Lewis like in high school? I actually just watched I think it was 30 for 30. Did you watch it?
I watched some of it. I watched the ending.
So
of
good.
It.
So
yes.
good. I forgot what it's called, but it's like the Ravens.
Bullies of Baltimore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was he like in high school?
The same way. So Ray was 2 years older than me in high school. He was a senior when I was a sophomore, but my brother played with him 2 years, and so he knows Ray a little bit better. But Ray was the same way, just intense all the time, and always the hardest worker on the field and the most talented guy on the field. And when you think about talent, like there's a lot of people that waste talent. But when you have that work ethic to go along with that talent, like he has, that's what makes him a Hall of Famer.
You know, with Bear Down, and when someone has a company and they're a founder, they have to build a team, right, around it. I'd love to hear from a football standpoint too. Who are your favorite teammates of all time?
Oh man, I got a lot of them. Thomas Jones, Olin Kreutz, Musa Muhammad, Alex Brown, going back to guys like Al Wilson, Rod Smith with the Broncos. I mean, I played with Ricky Williams, who I found out was just a great, interesting dude when he just came up and wanted to play cards with the group that was playing cards on a flight back to Miami after a game. And I know I'm leaving a bunch of them out. Jason McKee, Rex Grossman. Man, it's so many guys that I really enjoyed, sharing that field with and going to battle with every single day. But those are the names that's coming to mind right now.
What makes a good teammate?
Somebody who you can trust, somebody who when it's time to get out there on that field, they're prepared, they're ready to go, and they're going to give you everything that they have. And then off the field, you have a connection with them where, it's a brotherhood. So a lot of those guys, most of those guys, besides Ricky Williams, that I named, I hung out with those guys outside of the playing field. So that's what makes a good teammate for me. Somebody who they're going to show up, not just in the game, but in practice and in every part of the game, physically and probably even more importantly, mentally.
What were some of the lessons that you take from the NFL that you brought and bring into Bear Down Logistics?
Well, you mentioned that grit and the grind that it takes to make it to that level, right? I found out that if you want to be a good entrepreneur, it's going to take a lot of grit and it's going to take a lot of grind. And the other thing that is a parallel from my time in the NFL, right? When I came into the league, I was a 6th-round draft pick. So I didn't come in as a first rounder expecting to, have this long 12-year career. It was every year, and not even every year. Once I got this piece of advice, it was every day I had something that I focused on So every year I got better because every day that I went to practice, I had a focus. And I believe that's so important with how you approach your days as an athlete and as an entrepreneur. Like you don't go to the job without a game plan. You don't go on a practice field without a game plan of what you're trying to get accomplished. So those are the things that I believe that I bring from that past life of being in the NFL to now being in the field of being an entrepreneur.
What do people not see, right? You see you on game day, catching those passes, running,
Yep.
getting a touchdown. But what do people not see with the training, the sacrifice?
It's parallel on both again, being an athlete and being an entrepreneur. As an athlete, like you say, they see Sunday, they see Monday night, they see Thursday, but they don't see Wednesday morning, especially late in the season, when you got to slow down the stairs because all your joints are hurting. But when you get to practice, you have to put in that work, and it's like it just clicks and you just go. And it's like all the soreness just left. Another thing that people don't see is the amount of studying that goes into the game. Like the game it's only 50%, if that, physical. The other 50% or more is actually mental. We have more time in the film room than we have out on the field actually practicing. People don't understand this. In the NFL, it's like a real job. Wednesday, we're there 7:30 in the morning. We're not leaving till 4:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30. And we only practice for 2 hours. So what are we doing all that other time? Is studying. And the same thing as an entrepreneur. I did a podcast a couple weeks ago, and everybody see $47,000 in 1 week. And they didn't see what it took to get there. They didn't see the loss of $25,000 that I had over 2 months prior to that because I made bad hires, right? And I didn't go through that process. And what I had to learn from that to be able to make that $47,000 in 1 week, or 1 month, I should say, in profit. So they miss out on the behind the scenes stuff. And I'm a big advocate of not focusing on that goal and not looking at, hey, I want to have $1 million company, or, I want to score 10 touchdowns this year. Let's focus on the process of putting yourself in position to having that $1 million company, or putting yourself, getting yourself ready, staying in shape, making sure that you're mentally focused and the game plan. So when your number is called in the football game and you have the opportunity, now you can get in the end zone. But there's so much stuff that you have to do prior to getting in the end zone and prior to having $1 million company. Most people, they don't get to see.
You talked about, Desmond, the hires, right? And we all have misfires with hires. And even on the field, you have to make second adjustments, minute by minute adjustments. You get knocked down. You're like, how do I adjust so I don't get knocked down again? What was the adjustments that you have to make in the future from a hiring perspective that you learned from what you just said?
So I studied. So I had W-2 employees that was doing the same job as independent contractors, right? And I studied the two. And my independent contractor is my best hire. And there's certain traits with him. First of all, I don't look at him as an employee. I look at him as more of a business partner, right? I'm not paying him anything. He's earning everything that he's getting paid. And we have a split on revenue or on profits. With the W-2 employee, he's getting paid regardless if he produces or not, right? And you have to eat that if he does not produce or she does not produce. So what I learned is that moving forward, after understanding the mistake that I made, what type of person did I want to bring to Bear Down Logistics? I want to bring the right person that looks at his business. He has a business that he or she is trying to grow. And I become his or her business partner in this venture of helping them grow $1 million business or whatever that goal is for them. I'm the person that we come together. I'm your business partner. My job is to make sure that I help you grow to where you want to go. And that's what I learned from getting those bad hires.
Desmond, I want to talk, you have a little bit different model in general. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about Corey Davis. But before we do, talk about why you started. What was the idea behind starting Bear Down Logistics? Because you could have probably started a number of different types of companies. So what was the idea behind Bear Down Logistics?
So this is a common question that I always get. How do you go from the NFL to logistics? And actually, I went from the NFL to being a residential real estate agent for a short period of time into the financial field. I was a financial advisor full time up to 2019. And then at the end of 2019, I decided that, hey, I want to do something that is a gift of mine. I wanted to get out and motivate people and motivate leaders to bring greatness from people. And I wrote my second book, actually, The Principles of Winning. And then the pandemic happened. So I didn't get out and do the speaking, but through that, I learned how to market myself online. And I started getting a whole lot of online interest. And one of the people that was interested was a guy who owned a logistics company, Brian Rice of Dre Depot right there in Chicago. And we had some interesting conversations. We had some conversations about doing some co-marketing. We had some conversations about me possibly coming over and working with him. And that's when I started to study the industry. And as I studied more and more, and I had his input on what this industry was all about, I fell in love with it. I love challenge. I love challenge. You know how, Jeremy, you hear a lot of times people go to work and they say, well, I'm not challenged. It's boring. It's the same thing every day. Not in logistics. You always got something different that's challenging you every single day. And I love that hustle mentality about it. And what I found is that I can take what I believe is my gift of being a motivator and a leader and use this platform to help bring other people to that point of recognizing their own greatness. So it was just a combination of this logistics industry. It's not going anywhere. It's here. It's not one of those.
People are always going to have to move something from one place to another place.
5 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, it may matriculate into different modes of transportation or something like that. But there's always going to be supply chain and logistics. And that's what really brought me to it, is that all of those things that I mentioned.
It's funny. It does parallel, it seems, that logistics to NFL. Like, when you talk fast-paced, challenging, intense, all of those things. Do you have a favorite story, Desmond, from Principles of Winning, from the book?
Oh man, it's
from one of your talks.
I was about to say, that's like saying what is your favorite child? Who is your favorite child?
Well, depending on the day, that's an easy answer for me.
Exactly. Exactly. It's just depending on the day that I can give you the best. But for me, I think the foundational one is this. All you have is your name and your word. That's principle number one. And what I mean by that principle is that's your calling card. That's your brand. And I think not often enough do people define who they are and put it in words. This is who I am. This is what I'm about. This is what I do. And then walk it, live it, talk it. And now once you define that for yourself, now define what you want that to mean to everybody else, to all the people that you come in contact with, starting with your family, starting with your friends, starting with your colleagues, starting with your business partners and everybody else that you touch and influence. What do you want that to mean? Because at the end of the day, your name, just like Nike, just like Walmart, just like Rise 25, just like any other brand name, solicits some type of emotional reaction when they call that name. What do you want people to think about you when they call your name? And that's the basis of build. That's the cornerstone. That's the building block that you build everything else upon.
You know, I mentioned, you have a different model. We'll talk about some of the specific services, what you do at Bear Down Logistics, but you have a little different model. Can you talk about Corey Davis for a second?
Yeah, Corey Davis is my guy. So his name is Corey James Davis. No, he's not black. And I'll always joke with him about that because that is a black person's name. When you think about Corey James Davis, you think about a black guy. So when I got his resume, I'm thinking I'm going to meet a black guy, and then here comes this white guy, Corey James Davis. I'm like, okay, this is starting off different. So we had the chance to sit down and talk.
How did you come across each other?
He approached me off from LinkedIn. He seen some of the stuff that I was doing. He was interested. He seen that I had started a new company. I had only been in existence for like 5 or 6 months. And this is when I came up for air after just trying to grind it out and make sure that this was going to be a legitimate, sustainable company. So this was January. Actually, it was December when he reached out. We met in January. And the thing that he said is that, hey, man, I want to build a business. I don't necessarily want to work for someone. I want to build a business. And I was like, okay, let's talk about it. And before this, that wasn't my idea. He sold me on his idea of wanting to build a business, but he said, I also want a team so I can continue to expand. And so now the business model from that conversation is the Corey Davis business model. Corey Davis don't work for me. He's my business partner. And I supply all of the carrier rep, back office support for him. So all he has to do is go out, sell, bring customers in, take their orders, quote it for them, and then turn it over to my side of the business for what I do as his business partner and make sure that we have all of his loads covered and take care of the billing invoices and the other 50 things that we have to do for him.
I'd love to hear. So it sounds like who would be an ideal person for you in this scenario, right? The Corey Davis. It seems like his superpower is he likes to sell, good with people, organized, but he doesn't want to do all of the back end work. So who's ideal for you? Who's your next Corey Davis? What does that look like?
So those things are really good, right? And he's really good at all those things, but I think it's more so of a mentality that I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who has a big vision. I'm looking for someone who wants to impact, first of all, their family. And then what other impact do you want to make? I'm looking for people who want to be great at what they do. And Corey is that person. Corey came over and we talked about our visions, about what I wanted to accomplish with Bear Down Logistics and how his individual vision fit into my overall vision. And we can both drive our visions together. So I want someone with a big vision that sees this logistics industry as a vehicle to get to where they're trying to go. Like most of the technical stuff, we can teach all of that stuff. But by the time you hit 25, 35 years old, your mentality is already set. So I'm looking more so for a connection of mental state and drive and hustle and just a recognition of this industry and what it can provide for you as a vehicle to take you to where you want to go. And just to get a little, I know that's kind of vague, but I'm going to dial it in just a little bit. If you ever thought to yourself that, man, it'd be very, very cool to start my own company in the logistics industry. Or I've been working in the logistics industry, and I always wondered, can I start my own company? I'm looking for that person. I'm looking for that person because I want to be a partner with that person with everything that I discovered for the last year, the processes, the systems that we've put in place for us to be successful, for us to be $1 million plus company within a year when there's 122,000 logistics companies that failed in the 1 year that I've been in existence. In the worst time in the last 5 years for the logistics industry. There's a reason why we've been able to prosper, and I want to help other people see those same type of results.
Desmond, you talk about vision, mentality, big goals. I want to talk for a second about 100 million, what that number means, because I've heard you talk about it. But before we, because you have a big vision and big goals, but I want to go back to your playing career for a second. At what point, and it's about believing first. At what point did you think to yourself, I'm going to the NFL?
After my junior year in college. That's when I petitioned the NFL to see if I was to leave my junior year, which I wasn't. But that year, I led the ACC in receptions with 72. And I petitioned the NFL to get my draft status, my draft stock. And they said if I was to leave my junior year, I would go 5th round or be a rookie free agent. So that was the range. So at that point, that's when I started to even think about playing in the NFL, because my whole thing was, I just want to be the best college player I can be.
You were very present focused. I thought you were going to say like 5th grade or something.
No, hell no. So Jeremy, here's the thing. People don't know that I'm not the most athletic guy that you ever met before. And if you're watching this, take a second, and I'm going to talk really, really slow. So you can take this second, because I want you to do it as you're watching this. Get on your phone. All right, I'm going to pause for 2 seconds. Go pick up your phone. And then type in Desmond Clark, combine stats, COMBIN. That is where we go and audition for jobs in the NFL. That's my audition. And I want you to scroll down until you see a big red letter. And I'm not going to tell you here what it is, but when you see it, you're going to understand that I was not supposed to make it in the NFL. I was slow, I was weak, and I was small. I ran a 4.88 40, Jeremy. Oh, there you go. Keep scrolling down, Jeremy. Keep scrolling down. Keep on going. You'll see a big red letter. Keep going. There you go. There you go. Right there, Jeremy. So if you look at my size was
like,
okay,
who wants to draft this person? They got an F.
My speed, look at that. My speed was terrible. My agility was the best thing that I had. And it was in the I can't even say the lower half or the top half. I was just right there on the edge of average. And then my quickness score, and look at my strength score. That's pitiful, man. That almost brings tears to my eyes right now. So if you go down and look at the factors for a successful tight end, I did. No, you was right there. Keep going. Go back down. Right there.
Right here. I got you.
Yeah. So my broad jump, I had half of the things, but yeah, man, it was all about me getting better day by day, year by year. My first year, I was not ready to play. Year 2, I was ready to play. Year 3, I was pretty good. Year 3, and that's when everything kind of took off. But hell, I forgot what the whole question was about. Now I done started talking. Well, what was the question?
Well, you were saying at what point did you believe you wanted to go to the NFL? And I was thinking 5th grade, like, from early age, like, I'm going to the NFL. You decided, but you were saying no, it was my junior year in college.
Right. I thought I was a good football player. I never did think I was great early in my, my teen years, or, even when I was leading the ACC in receptions. I thought I was good. Thought I could do some good things. But I didn't foresee a 12-year NFL career.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that's one of the attributes that allowed you to be successful? It seems like you're a pretty modest person that just wanted to keep improving. You didn't have a big ego. And, because even if you look at your college days, I mentioned some of the stats, like highest reception yards, ACC All-American status. Someone could read their own press clippings, I guess.
Yeah. But it was more about being in that time. So, and then afterwards, you look back on that time and you've accumulated so many stats, right? But when you're in that time, I'm just trying to catch, a touchdown or 5 passes or whatever I need to help try to win this game at this time. And I never did really kind of look at the bigger picture. I've always been like all right, I know the big picture, but now I'm focusing on the details, the small things that I got to get accomplished just to get the job done today.
Yeah. So, you take that, just keep improving the little things, keep improving everything day by day. When I say 100 million, right? Talk about that.
So that has everything to do with football also. And it has to do with who I am as a person. One of the things that I never liked is when somebody seen me just as a football player. And you could tell when people hey, I just want to talk to you just because you play football. And that always kind of irritated me when that person was around me. I'm more than a football player. I'm smart. I have ideas. I could be creative. I got ambition about other things. And I don't know if it was my 3rd or 4th or maybe 5th year, somewhere in there, is when I said to myself, when I get done playing football, I'm going to make more money than when I actually played football. So now if you break this down, the average profit range for this industry is 15%. So now if you make 15% of 100 million, you made 15 million in a year, right? So I made 15 million in my entire NFL career. So that's where that number comes from. So I know people are like, oh man, I thought it was something like different, or no, that's what it is. And I'm not afraid to say it. Like I'm trying to prove something to myself. And over the time, I would have already probably made 15 million, but I want to do that in 1 year. In 1 year. And that's me trying to prove to myself. That's me competing with myself. That's me trying to make me better and have my own goals. I don't know what the other guy, why he picked his number or why he's driving so hard. I really don't care. It's all about, why did I pick this for myself? And then how do I optimize myself to get to where I'm trying to go, so I can just prove to myself that I can do it.
Desmond, what gives you the drive? If you look back in your childhood for sports, for business, does something go back to what drives you? Someone in your family?
Yeah, absolutely.
Something?
It has nothing to do with sports. It has everything to do with, I just wanted to see success in my life. My father was a drug addict, and because he was a drug addict, we lost everything, and we came up and had some rough patches, man. Living in an apartment with no lights, with no refrigerator, man, it was a few dark days. Let's just say that, and seeing most of my family not really have anything. I don't know what sparked that, but I wanted to be different. I wanted to have something. I wanted to be able to provide and, do things. So it was, and if you read my book, I talk about how my dad got shot when I was the age of 12 and he was shot and blinded. So for a period of a few years, I used to light my dad's crack pipe for him whenever I was at my grandmother's house because him and my mom was divorced. So it was one day after lighting his crack pipe for him, I came out of that room and it was drug dealers in the house, chaos. And I got propositioned that day to sell drugs. But it was during that walk home at the age of 14 that I said to myself that I'm going to be successful. And, I didn't know what success meant, but that's when I determined that I'm going to be successful. And I went home that day and I told my mom, I'm going to be successful. I didn't know how, I didn't know where, I didn't know in what form, but my mentality kind of crystallized at that point that whatever I need to do, that's what I'll do to get to where I can say that I'm successful. So that's what really kind of sparked that mentality.
Yeah, that's, can't even begin to think about how rough that was. And, like when I was asking about when did you know you were going to be an NFL player, it wasn't about sports, early on for you. Is it more about you deciding to be successful, whatever that looked like? And
Yep.
I love to hear how you parent, because you look at your childhood and what you had to go through and what you had to overcome compared to your kids, right? So how do you parent knowing that some of those things, I mean, you wouldn't wish upon anyone, but it did shape
Right.
to who you are and it did create a drive in you.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you parent based on what you had to go through?
So parenting has been rough for me, man. Especially over the last couple of years. I want to see and bring out the best in my kids. And I have my oldest kid that is going on his own path and really don't want to attach to principles and the teachings and the lessons, and me want to push him in the right direction. I have another my twin, not my twin, but I have twins that's 20. I just helped her move into her first place this morning. But I'm still trying to get her to understand that in life, if you don't build skill and mindset, it's going to be rough. And I'm scared for both of them, right? But I also realize that they're 20 now, and it's only so much pushing that I can do before I probably literally push them away, right? And then I have my 11-year-old that I'm pushing and trying to get him to understand the same things, right? I have my 25-year-old stepson that the same things, trying to get them to, because they didn't have to go through the stuff that me and my stepson didn't have to go through the stuff that my wife and his mom had to go through, right? And my kids didn't have to go through the stuff that I went through. So I don't know if they understand what it takes to really be successful because they never had to struggle. And then for my 11-year-old, I mean, it was 14 months ago. I actually had to travel to Africa, literally track him down, literally go and find him and bring him back home because his mom, my first wife, had actually kidnapped him and took him over to Africa without me knowing. And you're talking about a journey, man, and an experience, flying to a foreign, not country, but continent, and having to track your kid down with no plan, no help. And I got it done. And I brought him back here last year. That's why I say, hey, parenting it's been rough this last year or two, but I can only give my kids what I have, right? And what I have is a way of doing things that help me be successful. I can only teach them what I know. And my hope is that, especially with my older kids, is that those seeds were planted, and maybe it's just going to take a little bit of extra time for them to germinate and then sprout. Because some people get it early, some people get it a little bit later. But like I tell all of my kids, they have been seeded well, and now it's up to them to cultivate those seeds and make sure that they grow as they need to.
You know, Des, there's so much to dig into. I know we only have a minute, okay, but I do want to point people to beardown-logistics.com. I know one of the stories I wanted you to highlight a little bit was Best Buy, LG, but those are some of the companies you work with. And so I don't know if in like 30 seconds or so, because I know you got to hop off, if there's anything there, or we just kind of leave it at that point and let people discover more at beardown-logistics.
No, I could definitely talk about that real quick. So we have a bunch of services that we offer. With Best Buy LG, that's a big client of ours where we offer drayage services. We offer warehousing, transloading, and cartage services for that particular customer. We have other customers like Intents, IN-Tents, like a TP tent that we move loads for them all across Florida on flatbeds because they set up these huge events all across the place. And it's been a joy, man, to be able to get into this business and have it take off within a year like it has. So those are two of the clients that we do all of our services for that we offer.
Desmond, the first one to thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And it's really, impactful, touching, and everything in between. Everyone check out beardown-logistics.com to learn more. And thanks, Des. Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like $100 grand.